Welcome, everyone. My name is Ozana Cucu-Oancea. I'm a senior researcher at the Institute of Sociology of the Romanian Academy, and I'm delighted to be part of the ISA World Congress of Sociology for the first time. I hope that even though I wasn't able to be with you in person today, you will still enjoy my virtual presentation. Please give me a moment to share my screen. Okay, here you are. In this short video presentation, I would like to talk about the value of using diaries for collecting quality data, paying special attention to the methodological challenges raised by applying this technique during the pandemic. First of all, I must say that even though I have been working successfully with diary methods for 2 decades, the COVID-19 pandemic made me even more aware of the adaptability of this method to the most unusual situations. However, for a long time, social scientists were reluctant to use diaries for data collection, and even today, diaries are considered a kind of poorer sister to the methods that still rule qualitative research, that is, in-depth interviews and observation. The most often invoked limitations are the lack of control or little control of the researcher over the diary's content, the difficulty finding a sufficient quantity of unsolicited diaries to fit the topic, and the exclusive targeting of the literate population or the one with technological skills. But despite these limitations, diaries have been used successfully given their ability to capture the daily life of specific social categories according to gender, age, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and so on, or to capture people's everyday lives in specific regions or historical periods, as it can be seen in the Worm Time diaries. Moreover, diaries can usually be fruitful in studies focused on the impact of disasters. In this regard, the studies based on both solicited and unsolicited diaries kept during the COVID-19 pandemic are noteworthy. Methodologically, diaries reduce memory errors, increase data accuracy and fidelity, provide high reliability data, contribute to data triangulation, and offer the possibility of processual follow-up of social phenomena. But perhaps the most important aspect, the one that qualifies the use of diaries as a highly resilient method in turbulent times, lies in the fact that this method does not require the physical presence of the researchers, enabling them to get quality data from all participants simultaneously, regardless of their geographic location. This feature has highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic when researchers had to rethink their data collection techniques in accordance with the restrictions imposed by the pandemic. Thus, fieldwork and face-to-face interviews were replaced by online interviews and different kinds of diaries. Plus, the therapeutic function of journaling makes this method even more suitable in times of crisis because it resonates with the mood of the affected population. If I may say so, the pandemic was a big chance for the diary methods to come out of the shadows and prove their value in providing quality data even in times of crisis. The number of diary studies carried out during the pandemic was increased sharply, and the topics they have addressed were diverse, as you can see. Since I have been using the diary method to investigate festive events for more than 2 decades, for me, the pandemic did not mean a methodological reorientation. It rather led me to keep going with this method for exploring new facets of festive phenomena. The truth is that before the outbreak of the pandemic, I had no plans to do a diary research on Easter 2020. What led me to launch this study was the pandemic restrictions, which were going to ban the most popular Easter practices, especially attending Easter services in a country like Romania, where the religiosity degree is among the highest in Europe. Thus, in mid-April 2020, with just a few days till the Orthodox Easter, I suddenly decided to set up a research diary project in order to explore Romanian people's attitude towards celebrating Easter during the first national COVID-19 lockdown. The main objectives were to examine the disruption of the Easter traditions due to the pandemic restrictions, and then to explore the way in which people respond to these changes. For example, how do people adapt to these disturbing experiences, or what is the emotional impact they have on them, or what coping strategies do they use? The study was conducted on a purposive sample of 73 participants aged 16 to 80 from various areas of Romania. They had to keep an unstructured diary covering the most important 3 days of the Orthodox Easter. Although I believe that the diary was the best method to capture on the spot how re-ritualization helped people to cope with the disruptive experience of the pandemic, there were still certain methodological challenges that I faced throughout the research. The first challenge I encountered was related to the recruitment of diarists, which had to be done right away and under a total lockdown, so everything unfolded very quickly and remotely. The biggest challenge was, though, to reach the targeted people in time, given that I started contacting them only 3 days before journaling begins. So I had 2 fears in this respect. The first one was that people will not open the messages in a timely manner, which happened only in 2 out of 90 cases. To reduce this risk, I sent the participation requests in several ways by instant messaging apps such as WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, probably the most used means of communication in the lockdown, and also by email, especially for those for whom I had no other contact details. In addition, in cases where I did not get any feedback until the next day, I came back with a second message the day before starting the diary writing. The second fear was that I could not be convincing enough behind the screen and in a time governed by all kinds of emotions, given that the invitation message had to be succinct and impactful at the same time. 6 out of 90 people I approached refused from the beginning to take part in the research, and other 9 withdrew after initially accepting the invitation. So 15 people out of 90, which was not so bad after all. The second challenge was related to the return of the completed diaries, an essential step that raises up your heartbeat every time you work with diaries. This actually happens whenever the participants are in charge of handling data collection tools. On the one hand, there was the concern that the participants who agreed to keep the diary actually did it. As I said before, there were 9 such cases when, although the participants agreed to keep the diaries, they did not return them in the end. On the other hand, there was the difficulty of getting into possession of the solicited diaries, especially the handwritten ones, whose authors were not familiar with the use of new technology for digitizing documents and sending them remotely. And indeed, only after more than 1 month, I managed to collect all the diaries. Then, of course, there was the doubt that the diaries would meet the requirements of the research. So I had to read each diary as it was received, and if clarifications were needed, I came back immediately to the diaries, asking them to give me more information. Finally, the third challenge I encountered was related to emotional management in the research participant relationships, considering that the research took place in a time governed by strong emotions on both sides, when fate and tradition interfered with fear, anxiety, and lockdown rules. One of the problems I had to manage was caused by a tragic family event, the death of my mother-in-law, that occurred 2 days before the diary writing was scheduled to begin. So 2 extremely emotionally intense days followed, and nothing that needed to be done both on a family or on professional level could be postponed or delegated to other people. On the one hand, I tried to stay focused on research preparation, keeping in touch with those invited to take part in the diary study. And on the other hand, I strive to manage both emotionally and logistically a funeral also marked by unprecedented pandemic restrictions, which distorted the usual bureaucratic procedure and traditional habits. Moreover, considering that the days around the Corona Easter in which the diary research was carried out were emotionally charged with the most diverse feelings, fear, frustration, anxiety, but also joy, and hope, and gratitude, I had to be even more attentive to the emotional management of the relationship with participants. Therefore, it was mandatory to show a lot of empathy in communicating with them and to avoid deepening the anxiety and confusion dominant in times of crisis. Besides, I gave the participants the freedom to write down in their diaries however they see fit, providing them only some thematic guidelines to follow. Also, I tried not to put too much pressure on them when collecting the diaries, so I gave them time to finish filling out their notes and processing the pictures and video materials recorded during Easter. In conclusion, I can say that the diary method suited the pandemic circumstances perfectly, providing high-quality data with great relevance to the research objectives. Definitely, this was one of the most intense research projects I have done in 25 years, a project that required to be conducted at lightning speed, but which was so fruitful in the end. If you're interested in my work on diaries and more, stay tuned to my webpage. Thank you very much for your attention. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as I can.